You're listening to CinemaJaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location from CinemaJaw Studios in Chicago. My name is Matt K, and with me is...
Ryan the Movie Guy, and sitting to my left is KP.
Hello.
This week on CinemaJaw, Matt, it is a very special CinemaJaw, our top 10 of the year.
Fanfare, saluting, fireworks.
We're celebrating 2023 in film, Matt, and we got a great guest who's going to be joining us.
Brian Tallerico is back.
It's a tradition.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Managing editor over at RogerEbert.com. He comes on every year. We recap the year, our 10 favorite, and we have a good discussion on film. It's actually my favorite podcast to do every year.
It's not, you're not alone on that. We got some feedback, hopefully we'll get to.
Absolutely. Sure do. It is a special episode, Jawhead, so no review this week, no trivia this week. We realized it's tough to write the trivia because Brian kills Matt.
If
I write them to try to stump Brian, you're not going to get any of them right. It's just no good. So we threw that out, but what we're going to do in lieu of trivia is I have 5 questions that are sort of like poppy fun questions that are in regards to our own list. And to give you an example.
It's like a survey, yeah.
One of them is... I will go with this one. One of the questions I wrote after our lists have been revealed is, which film on your top 10 will be the most rewatchable? Those kind of questions.
Yeah.
So it'll be a fun discussion at the end of the podcast.
Something different.
Yeah.
I like it.
And I got 5 fun ones.
It's like a little present underneath the tree, Ryan.
Agreed.
Can't wait to open it.
So it is going to be a very fun jaw and a long one. So let's get started with an Emma Stone fact.
Yes. Emma Stone, we don't talk about tattoos on actors enough unless it's like Danny Trejo, who you cannot hide them on. Emma Stone has a tattoo of bird feet on her wrist that she shares with her mother, having matching identical ones, because Blackbird by the Beatles is both of their favorite songs. Paul McCartney himself, obviously of Beatles fame and the person who wrote this song.
Who?
Right. I don't know. Paul McCartney drew the bird feet tattoo for Emma after she wrote him personally, wrote him a letter asking him to do so.
That's the cool thing about fame, right?
You can write a note to Paul McCartney.
To Paul McCartney and say, hey, this would be special if you could draw bird feet and we could get the tattoo. Stuff like that I would really appreciate.
That and all the money.
Those two things are really what's special about it.
That is true. Good fact. Good fact about Emma. Well, you heard him already. He comes every year like Santa Claus, right at the end of December.
Right. He's fat and jolly, too.
Right at the end of this December, we get all ready for him. We bring whiskey, and instead of cookies and milk, it's whiskey and beer. Yeah. But yes, Brian Tallerico, managing editor over at RogerEbert.com. He is the president of the Chicago Film Critics Association, which runs its own festival. We might talk about that as well, because it's a wonderful fest here in Chicago.
We went.
Brian, welcome back to CinemaJaw.
Thank you for having me. Is this 11? I think last year was our 10, wasn't it?
It was.
So this is the 11th. We're starting another decade.
11th time that he is doing the top 10 with us.
That's great. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I wanted to start this off. Well, number one, how have you been? How's your year been?
Good. Yeah, lots of... I'm busy, and that's always good. It's always good to be busy, right?
For sure.
I'd rather be busy than bored. That's what I always used to say. So it was a little too busy of a year. Maybe next year it could be a little less busy, but good stuff. Good stuff.
That's good. I did want to ask, Matt, you sort of spoiled this question as Brian walked into the room and before we hit record. I wanted to bring up the year of 2023 before we get to our top 10.
Oh.
And I felt that there was a little bit of a shift, a turn away from some major blockbusters in regards to the superhero films, the franchises. This seemed like a little bit different of a year, did it not, Brian?
Very much so. Yeah, I mean, there was a huge... we might end up talking about Barbie and Oppenheimer at certain points, but that story has actually been underreported in terms of how big it is, in terms of seismic shifts in the industry, in my opinion. The idea that Oppenheimer made as much money as it did is crazy, and it's proof that it doesn't have to be a superhero franchise to make $1 bajillion. And I think if Hollywood takes the right lessons from that this year, and those two movies in particular could be seen as a massive turning point, and that's cool. And in terms of quality, I thought there were a lot of masters this year working at the top of their game, and I've got debut filmmakers on my top 10 too. So there was a good blend of voices from all over the world, really. So I thought it was a great year.
Matt, what'd you think?
Thought it sucked.
There we go. Because Marvel died.
No, that's honestly, I agree.
Just a coincidence.
Just a coincidence. I agree with nearly everything you said, and you as well, Rye. I think that there was a major shift. The Barbenheimer thing was amazing. Amazing. But aside from that, like I looked at last year's heavy hitters, and this year just doesn't hold the torch.
There we go.
It doesn't. I mean, we didn't get an Everything Everywhere All at Once. We didn't even get an RRR unless you want to say, well, you know what? I won't drop names yet.
Right.
Yeah, I just didn't see it this year.
Okay.
But that's me. Hey, yeah. I see like only a certain percentage of Ryan's movies, which is probably a certain percentage of yours. So,
yeah.
What did you think, Ryan?
So,
I thought
300 movies this year.
I thought it was a strong year. I haven't seen quite 300, but I'm around the 200 range.
Yeah.
Did pretty good. I thought it was a strong year. Like I mentioned, I felt the shift. And yes, the Barbenheimer really was just spectacular. And it wasn't even just the opening weekend, but I think what I loved so much, and we commented weeks after, going to a screening on a Tuesday, I'm talking 2 weeks after Barbie was out. We were at a press screening on a Tuesday, and the lobby was packed with people wearing pink. It took the country by storm, and I just loved it that cinema was again at the forefront of all this. Like, yes, it was exciting to go to the movies, and it wasn't just for a Marvel movie.
Barbie having a wide demographic, especially being a familiar property, is not too shocking. Teenagers repeatedly seeing a 3-hour movie about the creation of the atomic bomb is the most insane thing I think that's ever happened in box office history. Like, I literally can't fathom how that movie made as much money as it did, other than quality. Like, it's just the kind of thing that the idea that it's quality that made it into such a phenomenon. Well, we're going to get to that movie probably on at least one of our lists, so we shouldn't spoil.
Yeah.
But that's a major story to me. And if Hollywood takes that right lesson that we can give a creator like Nolan the money to do something and quality will make it $1 billion instead of just familiar weaponized nostalgia, then I think we're in store for a really good time in film.
Agreed.
Well, I hope that prediction proves to be true.
Yes. So we are going to get started. The rules are like this, Jawheads. We're going to go 10 to 1. To you, gentlemen, if we mention a movie that's going to be down your list, don't say it because we don't want to spoil that it's there. KP, we are going to get to your number 1 when we open up the fish tank. Sound good?
Sounds like a plan. I've got it ready.
And that's about all the rules we got.
The rules are there are no rules.
Brian,
there are a few rules.
You are kicking us off. Your number 10 pick of 2023.
I've changed my 10 so many times. I'm going to open it to the floor. Do you want the more obscure movie that people might not have seen or heard of, or the more recognizable movie that I think deserves a bigger audience?
Wow.
I
Or
vote
both.
obscure.
Or both.
Do you think one of these two will have
We
The
will do
recognizable
Neither.
one.
I don't think they'll have either of them.
We will have honorable mentions at the end. So I say go more obscure.
A film called The Teacher's Lounge, which is from Sony Pictures Classics. It's a German film about a teacher who, first off, it's from a filmmaker who studied with Michael Haneke, who's a very famous director who deals with like power structures, and it deals with that. It's about a teacher who kind of gets involved in a little bit of a controversy when a student is accused of something, and then she accuses another teacher of stealing from her. And it's just about power structures between adults and children and teachers and schools, and it all takes place in one setting, never leaves the school. It is a brilliant film it's a drama that plays like a thriller.
I did see this one.
You did?
I caught this at the Chicago International.
Yeah.
I might have played Toronto also. I'm
It did.
not positive. So I caught it at Chicago because there was some buzz a little bit
Yeah.
about it. The actress, I don't know her name.
Leonie Benesch.
Fantastic. Unbelievable
Oh, really
performance. And yeah,
Not out in most markets yet, so hopefully you can find it. I think it's coming out limited next week and then expanding in January.
I do recommend this one as well. Not on my list. I didn't even write this one down, but I did thoroughly enjoy this one. So good pick at number 10 from Brian.
We're going my direction, Ryan?
You bet.
All right. At number 10, this movie speaks to the struggles I had this year because I think it was a miss in a lot of ways, but nevertheless a master at work, an undeniable titan of cinema, Martin Scorsese's latest, Killers of the Flower Moon.
This is at number 10 on your
Ekes
list,
in
huh?
at number 10.
Wow.
Yeah, and listen, a Scorsese movie any other year is probably in the top 5 or top 3, maybe number 1.
Wait. I don't think Silence or Irishman were on your list.
No,
like this
for
is
sure.
Irishman was on my list.
We've had recent examples where I don't think this is true.
Definitely.
I've been here a long
Silence
time
I
now.
missed. That's fair. But like, man,
Wall Street probably.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But the two since then, Silence and Irishman, I don't think
I didn't see Silence. Yeah. Irishman was on my list.
All right.
I'm pretty sure. We fact check me on that one. I'll go back and look.
I don't think of you as Scorsese always top 5. It's just my point. I mean,
well, he makes good movies.
Yeah, no, he does.
Goodfellas is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Sure.
So he's somebody needs to talk to Marty. All right, about the length of his movies. Rein it the hell in. Otherwise, I really enjoyed the performances in this movie. Are face melting. They're amazing. They're great. I could stare at everyone in this movie for the entire runtime, which is what you'll wind up doing. It is my number 10.
Wow.
Killers of the Flower Moon.
I have a feeling we'll talk about it again. I will say the runtime, when I go see the movie the first time, doesn't bother me that it's 3.5 hours long. Where it's killer is I wanted to watch that one more time before making my top 10 list, and I just couldn't find the time to watch it a second time. So I've only seen it the once.
My wife hasn't seen it yet because I do think it has a cumulative growing power that shouldn't be divided. And when you've got 3 kids, it's hard to find 3.5 hours.
Right.
Hell yeah.
So I think dividing it into 2 or 3 even is just going to drain it of its power. We'll talk about this movie again shortly. I will say I've got a piece posting on Arrow Films about all the movies Scorsese has made since The Departed, six narrative features, and how they're all about an old man searching for meaning in his life. I'll just give that little pitch.
I like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Very.
I'll read that.
Like it. All right. My number 10, I'm going to kick it off with some feedback. We got this about a week ago. I flagged it because I thought this movie might make my top 10. It came to us from Lucas Matthew, who wrote into us, and he says, guys, I have to mention this before the year is up. I've been a longtime listener and a rare emailer of the pod, but I must implore you to go see one of the top 10, at least, he says, movies of the year and review it for all your jawheads out there. The movie I bring up is Godzilla -1. Looking forward to your year-end lists and the top 10 with Brian Tallerico, the best catch-up episode on any movie podcast out there, period. Have a happy holidays, Lucas Matthew. Thank you, Lucas, for listening to the show.
I took your advice, Lucas.
Is that your 10?
And that is my number 10, Godzilla -1. This is my first of 2 foreign films on my list. It is obviously from Japan, written and directed by Takatsu Yamazaki. And it's set in 1945. A kamikaze pilot lands on an island, and he is there amongst some other leftovers from the war, if you will. And lo and behold, here comes Godzilla. This is the opening of the film. And what we get after that, awesome scene at the beginning. Great way to open up a Godzilla movie. What we get after that is an anti-war movie. We get storylines about survivors' guilt over in Japan. And then we get this wonderful story of this new family starting and sort of the rebuild of Japan and the future that it can be and can have. And then on top of that, I'm mentioning all this. I haven't mentioned how damn mean Godzilla is in this movie. I think it's the meanest interpretation of Godzilla that I've ever seen on film. And I know for a fact I've never had a Godzilla movie on my top 10. And here it lands at number 10. Special effects are great. Like I said, the Godzilla look mean, but it's the human element, the story, and the drama that really separates this one from your average Godzilla movie by a long mile.
They really hold back the reins on Godzilla. We do get plenty. We get plenty of Godzilla.
That's common. Like
Is
the
it?
Toho Godzilla is like commonly you didn't see Godzilla hardly at all. It was more about, and then the recent ones even like Shin Godzilla.
Right,
Godzilla is
Shin
about
Godzilla.
bureaucracy more than it is Godzilla. And even those early ones, until they got into like Destroy All Monsters era, a lot of the early ones you barely saw Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But nowadays comparing it to the American films,
Sure.
which
Well,
aren't
those are
terrible.
very different. No,
They're
Wind
pretty
Guards
good.
is fun.
Yeah, lots of fun. But this is just something different. It is a human story rather than Godzilla's story. Godzilla is a force of nature in this, not a character per se.
Mm-hmm.
As he should be, perhaps. I don't know. It's arguable, but I enjoyed this a lot more than your average Godzilla film, too.
For sure. I don't know. What's the proper Godzilla term? Maybe KP can help us out here. What's the proper term for the blue laser that he shoots out of his mouth?
I'm not actually sure. Radiation beam?
I always called it
Blue
his
hell?
atomic breath.
Yeah.
It looked fantastic in this movie. The way it would go up his spine and then he would shoot it out of his mouth was just awesome.
I'm one of the biggest Godzilla fans you'll ever meet in your life. I have all of the Godzilla. I've got that awesome Godzilla Criterion collection. Go get that. It has all of them in it. I reviewed Monarch Legacy of Monsters. That's how crazy I am. I have not seen Godzilla -1. This is what happens when you have 3 children and 5 jobs and a movie comes out on December 1st.
Well,
so I will see it. I might change my top 10. I am very excited to see it. But I think this might be a movie on a list that I have not seen. So I have not seen Godzilla.
I'm glad that it can be me. I'll say this, too. This movie snuck up on me. I was unaware of it.
I'm very excited.
I was unaware of it at all. And I caught it because I think we had shifted.
There's been a lot of buzz.
Yeah, we had shifted our recording day, and I was like, oh, there's a Godzilla movie. That's how unknown it was to me. And I walked into the theater, and I'm like, holy crap, that was one of the best movies I saw all year.
I'm very excited to see it. I just haven't been able to carve out the time.
Yeah. So Godzilla -1, my number 10 pick.
And thank you, Lucas, because I made a point to go see it before this list.
Yep.
Well, I guess I'm the failure.
Way to go, Brian.
Unbelievable.
I'll get to it soon.
I'm just glad it wasn't me.
Yeah, right. I'm pretty sure everyone in this room and everyone in the entire several mile radius saw my number 9, which is part of a trend of movies that didn't have an ending, but for this one I didn't mind, and that's Spider-Man Across the Universe, which I think is such a remarkably well-made piece of pop culture entertainment. It's mind-blowing how quickly it goes by. It feels like it's 15 minutes long. It's just a blur of creativity and passion, and then it ends and you get upset, but you get upset kind of like you did at the end of Empire Strikes Back. It's very similar in that sense. Like there were a number of movies this year that just didn't have an ending, like Fast X, which belongs in a landfill somewhere, because they just decided, hey, we don't need an ending, we're going to get you to come. But this one has that Empire thing. It's like, I'm satisfied with what I saw, I'm mad it's not going, but I can't wait to see the next one. And again, the artistry of that movie is mind-blowing. I think the Spiderverse movies are going to be wildly influential. We're already seeing it in Mitchell's vs. the Machines and TMNT, and it's going to break us out of this kind of stale Illumination bullshit animation that's so horrible.
Applause from Matt K.
Well said.
Yeah, and it's going to treat children with the respect that they deserve and superhero fans with the respect that they deserve, and it's going to destroy Marvel and Minions and all that crap. Yes. Let's go.
Marvel needs a shakeup. I'm not arguing with that.
I have this predicted as maybe being on all of our lists. This was
Could
one
be.
of them. I was going to ask you guys to write down what do you think will be the movies that come down on all of our lists, because I think there's some heavy favorites this year that will be mentioned.
I got 3 at least.
Yeah, and this was one of them for me. I love this movie as well, and you're right. I mean, it's just a work of art on screen. It was the first movie I saw in the theater 2 times this year, and we saw that press screening. I was dying to see it again. Like I was like, I'm going the next free night I have when it opens, because I just want to see it again. I just enjoyed it that much.
It's on Netflix now, yes?
Yep, it is, which is an incredible get for them. As soon as I saw it drop in there, I was like, that's great.
It is, no doubt. We'll talk about it more.
Sure, I had a feeling.
So you guys dropped your numbers. I saw 100 movies, which is decent, right?
Sure,
I mean,
it's better, higher than average.
So I had a bit more to choose from, and this is a movie I walked out of, and I could not get rid of the smile on my face. The feeling was just delightful, even though you do go through a bit of a journey of emotion based on the classic book. My number 9 is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And this is from Kelly Freeman Craig, who's kind of known for doing coming-of-age stories. I think she was a good choice as a director for this particular story, because all eyes are on you when you adapt Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. It's pretty much like a staple for preteen girls reading. And I told this story when we reviewed it, but I have an older sister, so this book existed in my house. A lot of guys don't read this book, but I snuck it into the attic because I thought it was forbidden, because I thought, like, this book isn't meant for me. And I loved the book, and I loved the movie. It was just such a delightful story, so honest. Even though it's set in the 60s, I think, and it was written years and years ago, it feels like, oh, shit, this is how kids really are, you know?
Sorta. I mean, I like it. I'm not trying to come down on you, but I find it funny that I've seen Spin the Bottle played in so many kind of coming-of-age movies, and I know no one who played Spin the Bottle.
True, but I think it may have originated in that book.
Movies. Oh, it may have. Yeah, fine. But once they played Spin the Bottle, I was like, yes, of course they did, because it's a coming-of-age movie.
I mean,
we have iPads
Teen
now.
Wolf.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Keep going.
But I mean, the movie overall,
it's good. It's very, very good.
Right, delightful.
Yeah.
Loved it. Wanted to make put it on my list. It's at number 9.
Yeah, I know we commented in the review how good Rachel McAdams was,
Yeah.
and that they really
And Safdie, too.
wrote out
Yeah.
that. Oh yeah, Safdie's great. How they wrote out that character a little bit more, according to you in the book. The mom wasn't such a prominent character,
Right.
and that I think helped this movie at least elevate it from just a normal coming of age, teen movie that we see constantly to something a little bit more special that I think we, especially at our age, could relate to more so almost from the parents' point of view than the kids.
It had some layers.
One of
it
the
worked
most
a lot.
underrated performers of her generation. I think Rachel McAdams is quite literally always good and
I'm with
often
ya.
great. I think her comic timing is insane. Game Night and Eurovision, she's hysterical in those movies. And I think when I was watching Are You There, God, which believe it or not, I caught up with like a week ago for my year-end stuff.
And you like
it's
it?
good, yeah, very solid. But she's the best thing about it. She's always present. Like she's one of those performers. There are certain performers that you believe they're listening to the other character in the scene. They're responding to the other character in the scene. They're not just waiting to say their line. They're not responding to something they've rehearsed. She's present in every scene, which is one of the reasons she's got good comic timing. She can respond to a joke like it's actually happening. She's just a phenomenal actress, and I'm glad she's getting a lot of attention for this.
Yeah, no argument.
No.
No argument for me.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this one, Jawheads, definitely seek it out. Well worth a spin. All right, for my number 9, it's confession time. And here's the confession. I'm actually not the biggest Michael Mann fan. I don't go out of my way, usually, to see a lot of his movies. I missed Black Hat altogether. Matt, I don't like racing cars. I don't like cars in general, right? I don't even care that much for cars. And I really don't like American actors doing funny Italian accents. Yet here we are. Ryan is listing Ferrari as his number 9 film of the year. I almost look at it as a guilty pleasure in a way. I don't know why I like this movie so much.
Don't feel guilty.
But I loved Ferrari. I mean, unbelievable. I joked it was like The Godfather mixed with Ford v Ferrari. And then somebody said, "Oh, you mean it's organized crime movie?" And I'm like, "No.
A little bit.
A little bit. To
Yeah,
a
the way
degree.
he sees human beings as disposable.
True.
Yeah.
It's just ruthlessness.
Especially when he talks to the drivers in that one scene. It really
Well,
felt
when one of
like-
them dies and he brushes it off like nothing happened.
Very much so. But the tone of the movie,
Sure. No, I think you're
very
right.
much felt like like Godfather-esque. And I think it helped. I knew nothing about Ferrari, the man himself, who here is played by
Adam Driver.
Kylo Ren.
Driver.
Yeah.
So I didn't know anything about Ferrari's story. So I thought, well, geez, it's interesting. He's got this whole, kind of like double life. And I don't want to give too much away because this hasn't even opened yet. I believe it opens on Christmas. So I was intrigued by the story. I thought the tone that Michael Mann had was fantastic. Penelope Cruz was
Amazing.
absolutely excellent in
One
this
of the best
movie.
performances of the year.
I think she might get nominated for an
She
Oscar
should.
for this.
She should.
The one that I thought was probably a little of an
Shailene.
outlier, Shailene Woodley was...
I think it's okay though. I think that character's supposed to be a little off center from the rest of the film, like the mistress essentially, and the one who kind of pulls him away from the rest of the world. So it's okay if that performance feels a little different from the rest of the world. I love Michael Mann. Michael Mann. If there's anyone I could arguably be an apologist for, it's Michael Mann. So the fact that it's on your list and not mine, it's in my 11 to 20, and my review runs Monday. By the way, if anyone, it'll probably up by the time this posts. So.
Same day, no less.
It's just I think I don't think Michael Mann's ever made a bad movie, like at all.
Really?
Yeah, and I think this one fits perfectly in his dissection of not toxic masculinity but privileged masculinity, a sense of like I said, someone who sees people as disposable, and the way it builds, the way it's like you can tell it's like a car that's got some sort of bolt missing, and you can tell it's eventually going to lead to tragedy, and then it does. No spoilers here, but it's got a scene that's just breathtaking in its tragedy, and I just love the way it's put together. The craftsmanship of Mann, I think, is just insane.
And that really comes through during the racing scenes.
Oh my God.
This race, it goes all over the country.
Oh my God.
This is so gorgeous
Yeah.
to behold, the racing scenes. I was like, again, I'm not into racing, and I'm like, wow, this is literally incredible to watch. The sound design was great.
Yep.
The way it was shot, the cinematography, fantastic.
And yet
was thrilling.
it could have been like a Public Enemies type, like super macho masculine thing. I think it's more like Insider. It's more like about the deconstruction of a human being, which that movie is about, someone kind of collapsing under the weight of what they're doing. I love Michael Mann. Michael Mann is the best, and I wish he worked more often. And Ferrari's in my 11 to 20, and I just can't believe he's on your list and not mine.
So did you have any problems with the accents at all?
No, I don't care.
Good.
But I also like House of Gucci, so take it for what you will.
I think that's where some people are going to come at, and it's a
whatever.
very shallow
Get
take.
past it.
Right,
Get
it's
past
a very shallow take. I'm like, all right, I get it that they're not the best at some of the accents.
Cruz is
great.
Cruz
Yeah,
clearly
no-
speaks Italian,
right,
like you
no
can tell,
issue.
and
No
has
issue.
lived with Italian women like the character she
Right.
plays.
But Shailene Woodley and
yeah.
Adam Driver, when they're talking, I'm like,
It's silly.
this is kind of...
Well, in general, it's silly to have
kinda
people have
goofy.
an accent but not speak the language. Like, it's just dumb. So once you can get past that, it's fine.
Hey, Ferrari comes out in theaters on Christmas. Jawheads. It's my number 9 of the film. I number 9 of the year. I loved it.
Italian accents in particular, if you don't do them like right, it can come off as a caricature.
It's a me, Mario.
Right, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not that bad, but it has its moments in there.
Right.
But yes, big fan of Ferrari. So into our 8s we go.
Another animated film in my top 10, and not Super Mario Brothers. Sorry. If there's another filmmaker that I could write a book about, like Michael Mann, it's Hayao Miyazaki, who's one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. I've got a Spirited Away poster on my wall. I've got a Totoro stuffed animal next to my bed. So I'm in the bag for Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki, but I still think his new film is a masterpiece. I think it is a wonderful movie that plays, I said it's both a kid's fable and an old man's goodbye at the same time. It plays both like whimsy. It's his riff on Alice in Wonderland and Wizard of Oz, which he's done 1,000 times. The character who travels to another world that's similar to ours and learns themes. But it's also a riff on everything he's done and everything he's made before and everything he's considered. And it's his most autobiographical film. It's got elements of that, which he's never really done before, about losing his mother and other issues that he's never really put into his movies. I find it emotionally overwhelmingly moving and gorgeous. So, Boy and the Heron.
We just talked about this one last week on the show as we reviewed it for the Chicago opening of the film. And yeah, it's a masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece.
It is.
Yes.
It will come up again, I think.
All right, good. When I saw Spiderverse, the fact that there's an animated film that I liked more this year is mind-blowing. Then there's 2 in my top 10 is mind-blowing.
I also have 2 animated movies in the top
Probably
10.
the same 2, unless TMNT or Super Mario Brothers can work their way in there.
Guys, my next 3
Or
picks
Leo.
are all animated films.
Wait,
There's a sleeper, Brian. I don't think you know my number 1.
Is it Leo?
No, it's not, sadly.
Is
It is
it-
animated.
I wouldn't say Leo is out of
Is it
contention.
Robot Dreams?
We'll get there. It's not that.
You have 3 animated movies in a row, Matt? Is that what I just heard?
Yeah, you heard.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you think about it, you can probably figure out what they are. It's just a matter of what order
Right.
do they
If
come
If
in.
it's Super Mario Brothers movie, we might have an issue.
No, he's not that big of a fan, but he is a huge
like it.
fan of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
yes.
So I'm guessing
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
one
yeah,
of them.
Yeah. So at number 8, I have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, and I'll say this to get us started: Trent Reznor and Atticus
Yeah.
Ross.
Yeah, that's
What? I couldn't believe that. The whole time I was watching this movie, I'm bobbing my head. I'm like, this thing's got a freaking killer soundtrack. And then at the end, Trent Reznor, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
It's the only movie this year that I have listened to the soundtrack at work like 50 times. Like, I'll get into work and I'll just put that on and let it play.
Nice.
And then it like I put it on YouTube, so it always gets into Trent Reznor's other
Sure.
movie soundtrack.
Moves on to Closer.
It's a great rabbit hole to go down.
Sure. Boy and the Heron has a gorgeous score too, by the way.
Oh, no doubt.
Gorgeous.
Joe Hisaishi never
Yeah,
fails.
amazing.
This
Ever.
one just appealed to me the most.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of like discordant cyberpunk and like 80s hip hop type stuff. So, and then the Turtles. Let's talk about this. I think you hit the nail right on the head with the Spiderverse being so influential. We've broken the mold. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and this is coming from a huge fan, so that's the caveat, such a tired and played out franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's had a turn with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Even Megan Fox.
Right. and by and large, the recent efforts have sucked. I haven't liked a TMNT movie since the original TMNT movie, which I still love. This movie may have replaced the original TMNT movie as the quintessential take on the Turtles. They all get their own personalities without being too different from one another. They're still brothers. They didn't change too much. They changed just enough to modernize it, make it fun, fresh. Great. They got the Turtles right. I think it was just good.
It is good, You know that student you wish was a little better and like tried a little harder, could maybe be a little bit better?
I think you're too hard of a teacher.
I might be.
You need to go back to the teacher's lounge.
The turtles being their own unique personalities, I think it doesn't quite have enough of that. And I think, in other words, I think the sequel will be vastly superior. I think once it can kind of define those characters better outside of watching Ferris Bueller's and just giving them like one trait each, if they can have a few more traits and be a little more well-rounded, I think the sequel will be great. I think the first one's fine, but I think the sequel will be better.
Are we going to talk about this one again?
No.
Okay.
It's not on my list.
Well, we got to mention Fly Guy, right?
Well, the character design,
Superfly.
the character design is super cool.
That was
like it.
Ice Cube?
Yeah.
Amazing.
I loved it.
I think it gets better once all that character design goes crazy. Once all the rogues gallery of villains comes in, and you can like appreciate the design elements.
Right.
But I think for a while there it's a little flat. But that's just me.
Oh, I liked it straight from the word jump. The biggest change that messed with me was Splinter, but I'm on board.
Yep. Well, I got no loyalty to the source. I just felt like the start of something instead of a complete thing, which is why I think the sequel will be better.
Yeah, I'm down for a sequel.
So I will say, because Matt is a very big fan, I am not at all. And I know we talked about this when we reviewed it. This was the first time I was like, oh, I get the appeal of the Turtles. I really like the Turtles.
Sure. And,
I just never was drawn to them before. I have to admit, I've never seen any of the other incarnations of the movies. I've never seen any of them.
How'd that happen? They do it like every 5 years to keep the copyright.
I know. I said before, the only thing I knew was the video game. I played the video game much, so that's how I got to know the Turtles. But I was a fan of this movie big time.
And Seth Rogen. Seth Rogen needs to be nodded. I mean,
Seth's great.
Yeah.
In the city of New York. I think the city of New York is like the fifth character
and Mr. Beast
in TMNT. And
Mr. Beast is the fifth character.
Sure. Yeah. But other than Jonan Vasquez, I don't know anybody who's done this series as much good.
Oh, I'm happy it did as well as it did, even if I wasn't.
Jonan Vasquez did TMNT stuff?
It's awesome. Oh my God, Matt. Watch the Jonan Vasquez. It's awesome.
All right, we'll talk after the show. I need to know about this.
Excited. My number 8 is an animated movie. This one already brought up, and it is Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse. And like Brian said, and
it's
I
3
mentioned,
cartoons in a row, technically from 3 different people.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Strong year for animation.
I'm going to shift that a lot in the next one, but go ahead.
But I put little notes in that I wanted to highlight exciting moments in the year of film, like when you're sitting there watching it, like it's a kind of highlight of the year when you're looking back, and it's that cliffhanger. Now we can spoil it because when we reviewed it on the show, we didn't want to talk about the cliffhanger. But seeing it in that press screening, I think that we were all in. You could feel the energy in the movie, like building. I mean, and it was so well done, where it was like building to something, and we thought, and then I think it was all realizing, especially to me, did not know 100% that this was going to be a cliffhanger.
Right.
So all of a sudden, I think it felt like the whole audience was realizing, like, oh my God, they're going to leave this in like a major cliffhanger. And it felt like there was a gasp, and then the theater went in applause as soon as the credits rolled. And I thought, what a moment. I mean, I just loved Spider-Verse. And
it's Luke losing his hand and finding out
I agree. That's such a good observation. Yeah.
It really is. It was like, oh my God. Oh, I'm so in for number 3. And I mean, the animation when they go to Gwen's world, and we've talked about the watercolors and it's running, the paint's running, the upside down shot where they're sitting upside down. Literally gorgeous. Timeless. Yeah, literally gorgeous. One of my scenes of the year. So many reasons to love Spider-Verse.
They bring the bagel back. Yes. There was a callback to the bagel.
You got to talk about
There was a callback to about 1 billion things in video games and other forms.
Yeah.
Jason Schwartzman.
There were call forwards. There was Spider-Man 2 video game stuff in there that hadn't even come out yet. So
Jason Schwartzman's Spot.
Yeah.
I mean, incredible voice work by Schwartzman. It's got so much going for it. Everything that those guys are doing over there, Phil Lord and those guys, just keep it going, man.
Yeah, really good.
So that was my number 8, was Across the Spiderverse.
My next one could not change the themes more. There's a filmmaker named Andrew Haigh who did 45 Years and Weekend. He's a really good, empathetic, human interest filmmaker who did a film this year it's not out yet, called All of Us Strangers with Andrew Scott of Fleabag fame. He plays a writer in a building who meets another neighbor, and they kind of fall in love a little bit, and it kind of spurs him to go back to his childhood home where he essentially reunites with his dead parents who died when he was young. And it's about moving on from things and grief, and it's about having to have being allowed conversations with people you've lost. How would you catch up? How would they wonder how you've changed? Would they be proud of you? Would they be sad about certain things that you've had to go through? It is an incredibly emotionally powerful film, and what I love about it so much is that it's got 4 performers, Andrew Scott, Claire Foy, Jamie Bell, and Paul Mescal, who are all exactly on the same page. It's like watching a great play with 4 actors who know exactly what the filmmaker is going for and attempting. It's incredibly moving. It's unusual. You kind of have to go with its conceit more than once, but I found it amazingly powerful. And Andrew Scott gives my favorite performance of the year in any film.
Wow.
I have seen this one. It's excellent. Not on my top 10, so I can say that, but right behind it. It's in that like 11 to 15. And yeah, you're right. The performances are absolutely fantastic. Claire Foy
Claire Foy's incredible.
She needs to be in more stuff.
Oh my God.
Can we
she's
get her in
incredible.
more stuff?
And I'd love to see her get nominated. Talk about understanding the assignment. Imagine, for those of you who've lost a parent, like if you've lost your mother, imagine being able to have a conversation with your mother about where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's powerful to even think about.
It is.
Like it's just, and it's so well done, and it's incredibly, as someone who's lost a lot of people over the last 5 or 6 years, in-laws and my own relatives, just the concept of it, like being able to talk to my aunt about what's happened since she's been gone, or introduce her to my kids. It's like, the idea is amazing, and that it's so beautifully executed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a movie I watched and definitely had tears in my eyes.
Oh my, it's impossible not to.
Yeah, throughout, and not just, that climactic kind of moment where something's coming. This is like midway through the movie,
Oh.
there's a conversation going on, and I just had tears
Yeah.
rolling down my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, this is hitting hard,
Yep.
man. This is
Yep.
hitting.
What's the title one more time?
All of Us Strangers.
Okay.
What do you know when it opens in Chicago?
I know it's New York, LA next week, probably shortly thereafter.
Okay. Keep an eye on that one, Jawheads.
My number 7, I'm dipping back into the inkwell, and it is The Boy and the Heron.
Okay.
I don't think we need to belabor it and discuss it any
I
further.
actually have it at number 7 also, so this is good.
Oh,
We
yeah.
can talk about it one more time. I also have The Boy and the Heron at number 7.
I did not expect that on all 3, and both of you higher than me, the Ghibli guy.
So here's the discussion that I think is worth having about The Boy and the Heron. What sets it apart from Spirited Away? And I thought about this for a long time, and I think I have at least part of what sets it apart from Spirited Away. It's a masculine story, and that's probably pretty obvious, right? Because it's about a little boy. But the themes that a male life explores is going to be different from the story of Spirited Away. It's about it's less about independence and more about his relationship with the women in his life and stuff like that. And it's a little it explores some of those themes more deeply.
Hero's journey. Like he feels he has to protect his mom. He feels he didn't protect his first mom and then has to protect his second mom. So there is a masculine hero's journey aspect to it. But are you saying you liked it more than Spirited Away?
No.
Oh, you're saying how is it different?
How's it different?
You don't think like nearly 2 decades worth of experience also contributes to that?
It's
Oh,
also
certainly.
It's also him opening up his own life.
Absolutely.
In ways he never really did before.
Absolutely.
Spirited Away is one on my top 10 of all time. It was on my Sight and Sound
I would
ballot.
agree with that too.
But Spirited Away is also deeply Alice in Wonderland influenced.
Right, and it's way more of a kaleidoscope.
Right.
This is a little bit more
This
muted.
is a personal film.
Yeah.
This is about him dealing with his mom and his dad. His
Right.
dad created parts for fighter planes, and that's exactly what the father does here. It contains more biographical elements than Hayao has ever put in any of his films.
Mm-hmm.
You can even get into the idea that he's trying to pass the torch down to his son Goro, which the granduncle does at the end of this film.
Or attempts to.
And Goro's not great. But
Earwig was awesome, Brian. What are you talking about?
I've watched Boy and the Heron a few times, and every time Granduncle is talking to him, like, I will give you my gift, I'm like, oh, Goro probably hates this scene. but anyway, enough of that. But not enough people have seen it. The choice the Mojito makes in that beat, in that moment, to go back to the dark world instead of being allowed boundless creativity, I think is incredibly brilliant and moving to me. I think Boy and the Heron takes a little while to get going. I think that first hour is slow. I didn't mean to jump into your thing
No,
again, but
it's okay. I'm digging what you're saying.
I think that first hour is slow, but I think by the end, everything is paid off so emotionally and so well, you don't mind.
I didn't find the first hour slow.
Okay.
I mean, especially the scene that opens it up with the fire and
It was
the,
incredible. Yeah.
the running.
Cinematically, it was. Whew.
And then I was just in for the ride where he's slowly exploring that
Yeah.
countryside where he goes to.
I called it a horror movie on Letterboxd, and someone was like, "How's it a horror movie?" I'm like, "He has visions of his mom burning alive like every night." Like, what are we talking about?
There are
Like,
definitely
it's got
horror-
every genre element in it. And he bashes his head with the blood and the pelican who's dying. Like, it's got horror elements for sure.
I think all of Miyazaki's
Yes.
films do. This one perhaps more than others, and you can make a
Sense
case.
Mononoke, probably. Yeah.
You can make a can that it's largely in his head after he knocked himself silly.
Yep.
I'm sure.
This movie has rewatchability layers. Yeah.
100%. Everything that these guys have said. I was on Letterboxd. One of our friends, John Hammerly, was on there and was the first guy on there that I follow that didn't like the movie.
Yeah.
But
What?
But
John, we got to talk.
I know, and he's probably listening to this. But John, he was just being honest. He said, I'm waiting for the moment where I get Miyazaki. And he's like, it just hasn't worked for me yet. You know?
I thought you meant
okay.
this movie specifically.
No.
I watched it with my 10-year-old, and at one point, and this is the only thing you need to know about this movie, I said, it's one point, like a good 2/3 of the way through, he said, "I have no idea what's going on."
Mm-hmm.
And I turned to him and I went, "Do you emotionally understand what's going on?" And he said, "Yeah."
Right.
And I was like, and that is it. That
That's
is
the key.
all you need to
That's
unlock
the key.
Miyazaki. You don't need to follow point A to point B. You need to follow the emotional logic of it.
Exactly. And I keep going back to the point where it's like when you're watching a movie, it's like you're being able to see Miyazaki's dreams on screen. And you just got to go with the flow and just exactly like you're saying, let the emotion wash over you. The music's fantastic. The animation, it needs 3-4 watches to really appreciate. I've only seen it the one time. I'm going to see it again in the theater before it leaves the theater. So I will be out there a second time.
Number one at the box office.
Which was awesome.
The
to
most
see.
amazing, another amazing story from this year. Like, how did that happen?
So great.
Because it deserves it.
Maybe these
Have you guys seen the
podcasts
dub?
and
I
all the
haven't seen the
writing we're
dub.
doing is working.
Has anyone seen the dub? I haven't seen the
No.
dub.
No.
I hear it's great.
I hear it's great too. Ryan told me.
That's what
Yeah, I
that's
do
what
want
I'm
to see
saying, too.
that. I've not seen the dub.
No.
My 6 is probably the one that might make people the maddest. Very strange movie, a funny movie, but that's also a thriller, that's also a commentary on the person who made it, that's also about perfectionism gone awry, that's also been misread 1,000 times. It's David Fincher's The Killer.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's phenomenal.
Oh, sorry. I just had a big glass of whiskey there
Yeah.
after you said The Killer.
I think it's phenomenal.
This high on your list.
Yeah.
This is my number 11, and I
Oh.
thought I was putting it high.
It is so well made, and it is hysterical, and it is weird, and it is great, and I can't stop thinking about some of the choices he made and how many people misunderstand it. Like, it's the most misread movie of the year. Like, oh, he's not really that great a killer. Yeah, that's the fucking point. Sorry, everybody. Like, the idea that someone who listens to the Smiths meet his murder while they're eating a cheeseburger, like, is not supposed to be a comedy. This is a fucking comedy. Like, what are we talking about? And also the meta reading of it, which is that David Fincher is a notorious perfectionist, someone who does 1,000 takes of 1,000 films. And this is about a perfectionist who keeps going awry. And the voiceover, the narration is the best of the year. My favorite thing about the narration is how he's constantly lying to himself and others. He's talking about plan, don't improvise, while he's getting beat up by the guy he didn't plan for.
Yeah.
it's constantly that.
Plan, don't improvise.
Exactly. Forbid empathy and stuff like that while he's acting out of empathy the entire film. His entire run there is because he got
100%.
because he's acting out of emotion the whole way. I just think it's a great movie technically and thematically, and I think it's the kind of thing I'm going to rewatch. I thought Mank was kind of a disappointment from Fincher, a filmmaker I usually like.
I liked Mank.
Fine, but The Killer's better, and I'm glad that he kind of bounced back with this quirky little thing that's also a great little commentary on capitalism. Like all the capitalism jabs in it, like
Right.
WeWork and McDonald's, and there's brands everywhere, and he's constantly a part of all of it. It's almost like perfectionism is distracted by capitalism. There's just multiple ways to read this movie, and I can't wait to see it again, and I love it.
Yes. It has so many great scenes in the movie also. I love the opening with the actual job.
The narration is such garbage, too.
And the use of the sound in there when
Yep.
he's listening to the Smiths,
Yep.
and then his mind takes over,
Yep.
and you go out from the earbuds into his head again, back into the
Right,
earbuds, back out, and it was just like, yes, I'm totally vibing with this.
And then you realize he's so full of shit. Like that's the best part of it.
And then he ends up missing anyways.
Exactly. That's the best part of it. But it sets itself up. It's like, ooh, this guy's cool, and he's an icy assassin. And then no, he's just a dummy who eats McDonald's and he dresses like a German tourist because he blends in, and he looks like he wouldn't blend in anywhere. Like he's just so bad at his job. It's also got some just phenomenal editing and cinematography, all the classic Fincher hallmarks. Just so well put together.
You got him taking names of famous sitcom and
Oh, that stuff's
people.
amazing. It's the funniest movie of the year.
It was
I'm sorry,
great.
it just is.
And then the fight scene that I
Yes.
love in the dark.
The haywire
so
scene.
so well shot,
Yep.
choreographed.
Yep.
The lighting in there's great. So there's a lot of highlights in The Killer. I'm high up on this one as well.
There we go.
Just missed your list, huh?
Just missed it. That's what I had at 10. I kept going back between that and Godzilla. I'm like, I'm going to put Godzilla at number 10.
Ah, all right. At number 6 for me, it is Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, there we
Number
go.
2, Across the Spider-Verse.
We might have more repetition this year than ever, which will maybe get us under 2 hours and 45 minutes of
Did
this
we?
podcast.
So I was the only one with TMNT, but we all three had Into the Spider-Verse and Boy and the Heron in our bottom 6.
I have a feeling we got some more of that. I think we got 2 more.
Maybe. We'll see. But anyway, do we need to talk more about Spider-Man?
I think we covered it pretty well.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the third one. I guess we'll go with this question. Between the two, I think this is a very tight race for the Oscar when it comes to Best Animated. Going around the table, who do you got winning the Oscar?
I thought you were going to ask a different question, which I'll ask after that. I think Ghibli wins just because Miyazaki, they're going to want to give it to him. He's 90.
I think
the
it's
last time.
Yeah.
And they can, and the other reason is they can save it and give it to the last Spider-Verse movie. My question is, do you like this more than the first Spider-Verse movie?
I do. Believe it or not, I like this one even better than the first Spider-Verse.
I'm on the fence. I think the first one is such a beautifully, it's aged incredibly well, and it's its own tight little thing. Like the new one sometimes goes a little. I kind of want to see them all, but I think the first one stands on its own as this beautiful little thing, whereas the second one maybe doesn't.
I don't recall from, what was it, 2019 though, but was Spider-Verse 1 in your top 10, Brian?
I believe if it wasn't, it was in the
Okay.
runner-ups. Yeah, but it's also the kind of thing where I think it's gone up since I saw it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yep.
I like. That's
It's a tough call.
question.
Yeah.
It is. But it
I think I might
feels-
like the second one, but that could be recency bias.
I feel that we would be having this conversation on the original Star Wars. Like you said, everybody was blown away by Star Wars, and then they saw Empire Strikes Back, and then everybody argues, like, I'm an Empire guy, or, you know.
Right.
Right, like in
It-
Clerks.
But we're talking about that high a quality of film. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
They're that good, the
Hope
Spider-Verse
they
film.
stick the landing.
And I think you're right on the Oscar. I thought it was going to be Spider-Verse
I did too.
until I saw
Yep. I'll
Boy
say
and the
this
Heron.
for
Boy and the Heron,
CFCI for my association, Boy and the Heron won, and it was not particularly close.
really.
Yeah. So, and I think until Boy and the Heron came along, it would have been Spider-Verse.
I'd love to see Miyazaki at the Oscars. Does he travel
No.
for there? Because
No.
if
He's
so,
90 years old.
He
I
does-
know,
he does
but we
not
would
tra-
get a
he barely
beautiful
barely
moment.
leaves his house. He does
We'd
not
get
travel.
a beautiful moment. We still
Oh.
might get a standing ovation without him not even there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Wind Rises won, didn't it? I think
No,
it did.
I think the only thing that's won
Easily
is
is worst, so it shouldn't have. But
oh, tough crowd.
not as worse.
Definitely
fast.
Spirited Away won. Spirited Away won the first
Oh, yes.
animated Oscar of all time.
What's Hayao's worst?
don't give me Ponyo. I'll be so
It's not
upset.
It's
Ponyo.
probably Ponyo.
I've got a list on Vulture, and I can't remember what's worse. Well, the Goros are at the bottom, but
Yeah, yeah. We don't count Goro. We don't count Goro.
I don't
Ronya and
remember what it is, but it's not Ponyo and it's not Wind Rises. I can't remember. I have to check.
Yeah. Well, that's our Spider-Verse and Boy and the Heron talk. I think unless KP surprises us.
All right.
All right. Time for my number
Where are we
6.
at?
My number 6.
Oh yeah, go.
The biggest movie of the year. $1.3 billion at the box office. And I'm
And
getting
it wasn't a Marvel movie.
and I'm getting calls. It should be my number 1. Greta's calling me. I'm not putting it there, but Greta, you got to be happy. It's my number 6 film of the year, Barbie.
Way too low, Rye.
Way too low, huh?
I think so.
Okay, well, I know we're going to talk about it, so I'm not going to go full detail because I'd like to talk about it a little bit, after a few more whiskeys. But I will say, I had a total blast with this, and I commented when we reviewed it here about how strange and weird the movie was, and I mean that in a good way, for as big of a blockbuster as it was. It had something to say, and when you're putting a movie in front of that many eyeballs across the country, to be able to have something and get people talking about the message of the movie, it was fantastic. And then you have the cast. I mean, Gosling as Ken, probably going to get an Oscar nomination, possible win for the
Gonna
thing.
win.
Yeah?
I think he's gonna win
Possible win for it.
I think
I think he's gonna win.
I agree.
because he didn't win for La La Land. They like him. It's him or Downey.
You don't think the guy from May, December?
No.
Okay, just a nomination.
Not
though.
just a nomination. Yeah.
Okay. But everybody in this movie played the role. Even Kristen Wiig, who played the weird Barbie, was perfectly cast in the film. And to the point where one of the biggest laughs for me was when Margot Robbie, who plays Barbie, is crying and talking about how she's so ugly and yada yada. And then the voiceover comes on and says, that this is a bad time that we should have casted Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
She's even perfectly cast here, obviously. And Greta Gerwig, who I know we're all fans of for, a decade plus on all her indie work, and we love her. We love Noah Baumbach. To see this come and be the biggest movie of the year from these two people who I cherish from the indie scene all the way on makes me feel like I'm doing my job the right way. Like I'm always talking about Greta Gerwig. I'm always talking about Baumbach. And now they get their chance to do something big on a large scale. And did they knock it out of the park? Hell yeah, they did. Barbie.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's not my top 10, but I like it.
We'll be talking about it.
Oh, well, there you go. Not for me, though.
Let's take a break after our sixth.
Okay.
We reached the halfway point. We're doing pretty good here. On time, too, I think. Right around
50
minutes.
minutes.
Okay,
50,
we're doing
14.
pretty good. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the rest of our top 5 and a little fun question regarding our top 10 at the end in lieu of trivia. Stick with us.